Good evening and welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. There's a lot to talk about and not a ton of time to talk about it. So a major bombshell today. And I do try to stay away from using kind of the word bombshell in the show title unless it truly fits that description. This is a pretty serious one. Dr. Anthony Fauci, the guy that the Trump administration in the first term and then the Biden administration trusted to handle the COVID-19 pandemic and the U.S. response to it. It now appears that not only in his not so private diary that he housed on government servers, his little memoir machine, that he was lying about how he viewed shutting things down, he also knew very, very early on, not just about the low fatality rate of COVID-19, the Chinese virus that leaked from the Wuhan laboratory. He also knew the effects that the mRNA, not really a vaccine, would take. So just as a quick policy note here on the show, from yours truly here, again, former science and anatomy and physiology teacher, the mRNA injections for COVID-19 developed by the medical organizations, I don't consider to be a true vaccination. It's not a weakened form of the virus that your body learns to fight in kind of a easy mode, Nintendo boxing match. No, this would be a direct series of instructions delivered via messenger RNA over to your body's immune system directly, telling them to just skip all of the other immune system steps and start producing massive amounts of antibodies. But there came with a series of risks. And a lot of individuals in this country, many of you here listening and to the show and watching it right now, were deplatformed, debanked. They were locked out of their livelihoods. Saying anything very outside at all of the Overton windows could see your entire career brought to a close and potentially degrees revoked. Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin released today, though, a series of text messages between Dr. Fauci and other government officials in which they knew all the way back in early February of 2021 that, the mRNA injections were in fact a threat to pregnant women. They were, in fact, a threat to pregnant women. So let's dive, right into some of this stuff here. Let's actually tackle and kind of take a look at some of these things. So up front here, a series of these messages contain all kinds of crazy stuff. So for example, from Dr. Fauci back on January 25th of 2021, he said, quote, "I asked around a bit more, and another issue came up that you need to be aware of. Since many people have significant cytokine storm and fever after the second dose, it's theoretically associated with miscarriage in the first trimester." Now, that's a pretty serious thing, because if you actually look at the series of recommendations from the administration, from others in the broader medical system and sphere in the United States and around the Western world, people were encouraged to not only get the first but the second dose and then all of these boosters, and that it was totally fine. Even though CDC's Sasha Ellington in August 11th of 21 said, quote, "We are not seeing a signal of safety concerns of the vaccine in pregnancy. The vaccine can prevent COVID-19, so that's the primary benefit." Fauci was making it perfectly clear back in February 3rd, all the way through March and April, in a series of text messages that, in fact, there were some concerns that women who are pregnant could suffer significant medical risks. And again, it's very, very disturbing. Jay Bhattacharya, the replacement for the director of the National Institute of Health, he had this to say over on Will Cain today.
The new text release from Dr. Fauci's phone seems to be a different message privately than what he was telling publicly about the vaccine in pregnant women.
I'm really glad that his words now can be heard by the American people. And I share your concern. I think that when you have a new product like the COVID vaccine was back then, you should be careful with pregnant women. And it's shocking to me that he was sharing private thoughts, and that when he was out on public, and he was out in public a lot, he didn't share those private thoughts with the American public. I mean, to me, the big problem now is really how do you restore trust in public health? How do you restore trust in science? And, that's what I've been working toward at the NIH, to really shift toward a transparent regime where there's scientific debate, scientific discussion, no debates off limits. I fully expect there to be people that disagree with me. And when I learn that I'm wrong, I'm going to tell the American public that I'm wrong. We have to turn the page from that.
And you have the job that he once had. That puts pregnant women in a really bad position. You're withholding information from them, giving them a recommendation that could potentially harm their baby. I don't know the process when you're the director of something like the NIH, but if you have reservations, shouldn't the public know those reservations?
I mean, especially for something like the COVID shots, which were brand new back then. I mean, and Tony Fauci was a major figure in trying to get those COVID shots off, past the finish line. He owed the American public some transparency regarding his honest thoughts. Generally, it's the FDA that regulates products and checks for side effects and so on. The NIH develops the science that produces the new vaccines. There's usually like one lane and another lane. Tony Fauci, in some sense, was out of his lane. Push and then use that power to tell the American one thing when he really thought another.
And that's the real issue here. Now, the questions that have been coming in, again, very, very apropos, given the consistent problems that we have seen from the Biden administration, especially, that if you questioned anything at all, and again, not just questioned whether or not certain things were effective, but if you simply said, if I have these pre-existing conditions, if I have this special case in which I have an autoimmune disorder, in which I am also, for example, fighting Lyme disease, if I get pregnant or seeking to get pregnant, should I go through with getting these? If you said anything at all in the public sphere about expressing some restraint or concern, you would be completely debased. In fact, again, Anthony Fauci would say publicly in February of 2021, quote, "The FDA has found thus far, and we have to be careful, but thus far, no red flags about that, no red flags about pregnant women." Rochelle Walensky, April 23rd of 2021, again, head of the Centers for Disease Control, she had this to say.
Importantly, no safety concerns were observed for people vaccinated in the third trimester or safety concerns for their babies. As such, CDC recommends that pregnant people receive the COVID-19 vaccine.
I mean, at some point you have to ask, what kind of consequences are there going to be? Well, the Biden administration, on his way out the door, auto-penned a pardon for anything, everything, possibly, maybe, sort of, kind of, maybe even just a smidgen. That was what was set up for Fauci. And then Fauci, once asked to go before the Senate committee, they simply asked him a very standard series of questions about diary entries and what he knew and what he didn't know, and found that well, I mean, that's my Fifth Amendment. And then they asked him what day it was of the week, and I have the Fifth Amendment. And then they asked him what his name was. He said, I have the Fifth Amendment. And I don't think you can do that. Now, this is going to give the Department of Justice more teeth to launch some kind of an investigation. I'm not quite sure yet. We've reached out to the Department of Justice. We've asked what it is that they are currently pursuing, given the recommendation of the Senate committee chair. Again, the Senate itself, the full Senate of the United States, has not voted on holding Anthony Fauci in contempt. And they're currently on a mystical sort of halfway recess adjournment. So that's a bit of an issue, given that right now, a lot of Americans are hoping that at least before the midterms, that Fauci is held in some kind of a contempt. But again, Fauci isn't held in Senate contempt right now. He was voted that, he's mostly in contempt. Please, DOJ, do your best and investigate him. Now, Todd Blanche has now been made the full Attorney General of the United States. He was confirmed. But it doesn't just stop with Anthony Fauci. More texts reveal, this is according to Bill Malugin, kind of digging through a lot of these things over at Fox, that U.S. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy responded to Fauci's concern about the COVID vaccine in pregnant women by adding, quote, "I've been hearing concerns about the mRNA causing mutations in the developing fetus as well," end quote. None of these concerns were ever made public. Now, the concern here is that a woman writing to her child via a series of DNA instructions, giving little bits of adjustment here and there from her genetics, if there are some mismatches between the child and the mom, as some of the different proteins, different functions inside little organelles inside the cells are scanning to make sure everything matches and everything lines up. as you have these, again, if you have between a mother and a child certain disconnects, the child might try to adhere, might try to reconfigure a couple of things to match what it's reading from the mom, like a double check kind of a system. Well, if the mom has received the mRNA COVID injections and the child is receiving essentially a stop, rewrite something and go back, it carries with it a greater risk of mutation. That was the concern. Fauci didn't express any of these concerns because anything that undermined the public's trust in the COVID-19 injections were a no-no. Radio crew, we have to send you over to the commercial. A lot more to cover in the meantime. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. Now, while they're over at their commercial break, what does this actually mean downstream for the country? Because again, when you're looking at an over 70% rate of women who in the first trimester of their pregnancy who had received the second shot of the COVID injection, over 70% would end up miscarrying. That's a very, very, very serious bit of medical malpractice. So if there were possible questions or concerns that way back in January, in February of 2021, Fauci was sending texts. I mean, there were entire lawsuits that were based on this kind of stuff. Greg Price, a good friend, points out that during the Murphy versus Missouri lawsuit, it was revealed that the Biden CDC was sending daily emails to Facebook demanding that they censor posts that raised concerns about the COVID vaccine impact on pregnant women, which it now seems that privately, Murphy and Fauci agreed there were significant concerns. That's a problem. That is a serious, serious problem. Again, by the way, as far as vaccines are concerned, because I understand that the flu vaccine has like an mRNA piece to it this year. It's kind of a different method of doing so. It's not a vaccine when you are simply telling the body to create a very specific series of antibodies. And by the way, your body is not simply held to host a ton of antibodies constantly circulating at all times, constantly producing. Your immune system has like 40 different cells, and they all act in a very, very specific and detailed manner. Antibodies are not the first approach. They're not. They're a recognition response. But anyway, that's another topic and another science lesson for another time. The national downstream effect of this is that the American people are simply never, ever, ever going to trust anything from the federal government when it comes to health advice ever again. And you may say, well, maybe that's good. Maybe they should be naturally skeptical. When you have millions and millions of people who are unvaccinated and carry with them third world diseases streaming into the United States unfettered during a 4-year period, and they are now in your community, and it doesn't matter if Immigration Customs Enforcement comes in and removes them. It doesn't matter if Immigration Customs Enforcement actually enforces federal law regarding this, that, and the other. If just the idea, the framing of this entire debate has created a culture of fear around any kind of national medical advice regarding vaccines, it is going to cause significant disease outbreaks. And by the way, who knows the 10, 20, 30-year effects that we are going to face as a nation of a lack of trust in institutions regarding health and medicine. We're already seeing this, by the way, in regard to elections. Every single election now is contested because no one trusts the institutions themselves that are building them. President Trump made this statement today regarding the Americans' views of vaccines.
So, in a nutshell, and you can see it through this, we're breaking up the vaccines, and we're breaking them up into time periods. Okay, not so complicated, and we think we're going to have a tremendous result from doing that. Very simply, large amounts of vaccine, large amounts of like vats of vaccine are currently pumped into your child's body, and we're doing 20% of that.
So the official guidance is changing. It's becoming more relaxed because if the current situation remains the same, it will erode quite faster than if the president of the United States makes some alternative recommendations. He then cites kind of the broader Western world.
America's recommended more childhood vaccines than any peer nation, and even twice as many doses as some European countries, and even more than that. In many cases, we were requiring 72 jabs for our beautiful, healthy, lovely, delicate little children, including giving the hepatitis B shot to infants and newborns on top of many other vaccinations. The hepatitis B shouldn't be given until they're 14 or 15 years old. They were given early.
Now, this is one of the again, the latter pieces here that you're going to see over the next couple of years, is that anyone that gets put in a position that says something from out of kind of like the 1990s approach is going to be shunned. Now, we got to bring the radio crew back in. Welcome back, folks. Speaking of rewriting history, and oh boy, gee howdy, are we in a place where the entire history of what happened during COVID, during the previous campaigns, et cetera, ad nauseum, while all of that is being rewritten, there are a couple of people who are trying to rewrite just the last couple of years. So Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, who very, very desperately wants to run for the presidency in 2028, she went on with John Carl. Again, the Sunday shows are the major networks' way of dipping their toes into podcasting before anyone else did. You bring the 3 or 4 biggest people of the week politically to talk big news, and it used to set the stage, and now it's just kind of an outlier for an interesting news hit. And so Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, she goes on with John Carl over at ABC, and the flattery is, you know, right there, just immediately. It's right up in front.
So we're almost out of time to get to your future. I'm sure you saw the poll in New Hampshire that had you as the leading candidate, leading choice for Democrats. First, are you going to run for president?
I mean, I'm focused on winning the midterms. I'm running for Congress right now.
But I mean, do you see this as something? I know you've said you're open to it. Is it a realistic possibility for you?
I haven't ruled out the possibility, and I'm very humbled to the tremendous amount of support out there. I think that we have a responsibility to remain focused on the midterms and not on our individual aspirations or plans.
And running for Senate against Chuck Schumer, is that also something that's possible?
I mean, I think that anything is possible at this juncture.
All right, so she does this in two different ways. So she gives the political answer. She gets up on TV and she says, it's not about me. It's about, like, everyone together. And again, the issue with that is that she has spent the last couple of weeks kind of prepping and priming her audience to be the most look at me person possible. Again, taking video. Abdul Al-Sayed's doing the same kind of thing where it's like, oh, hey, I'm at the gym, I'm working out, I'm doing whatever. Okay, sure. But then also, and we'll talk about this in a minute, AOC, while simultaneously saying, oh, it's not about me, don't ask me about me, it's about everyone else. Again, doing this big influencer-y video about injecting herself to freeze her own eggs. I'm sorry, you don't get both. You don't get both. You don't get to say, well, it's actually about everyone else, and then say, all right, everyone stop. It's time to talk about me. It's time to talk about, as a show host here, I use a lot of stories from my own personal life to relay things, but I don't usually send out a lot of tweets, Instagram posts, YouTube posts, all this stuff during the day to live like the influencery lifestyle, because I stand on the point that you guys, if you're tuning into the show, more likely care about the substance that I'm talking about that is relative to you, rather than, oh my gosh, look, it's Tony's doing like Tony things. And again, this kind of trying to rewrite your past to be Little Miss Super Duper, well, she's kind of a moderate now. She's kind of someone that isn't even really aggressively socialist or whatever anymore. This is what is being now made on her behalf. It is kind of the case for AOC. She's kind of a moderate. She's normal. She's not crazy or out there.
I mean, she can't be. She is now compared to the real core DSA wing, like the far left stuff, like the Daria Liza. AOC is like a moderate Dem.
The gaslighting is just incredible. She's compared to like the DSA. Yeah, because she's a card-carrying member of the DSA.
On a comparative basis.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
She's very good. And Republicans, I'm not saying voters, but her relationships with Republicans on the Hill, I think, is one of her most under-discussed and most important qualities. People genuinely like her.
That's
I think
super
it's
interesting.
good.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Listen to Tim Burchett, for instance, super conservative representative, loves AOC. You cannot get him to say a bad word about her.
Okay, so first of all, no. I mean, I have literally played to Tim Burchett himself the clip of him walking out of the Capitol and saying, "Don't look too close at AOC. Hey, Cortez." And she goes, "Hi, what's up?" And he goes, "New dress. See you later, Cortez." There's a difference between being respectful with someone and being kind to someone. And instead, no. The idea that, okay, so for example, I have spoken with John Fetterman in person, Senator John Fetterman, Pennsylvania. We were cordially chatting. We talked about a lot of different things. I would still campaign against him. And why? Because he votes for radically far to the left things. Now, his own party's kicking him out, and we'll talk about how things will eventually change over time. But the idea that you can simply turn around and rewrite your history as some kind of a moderate now, she's doing the same thing. She says that, well, all of the woke stuff, all the canceling people and the racism and the LGBTQ+2IA, that was all kind of crazy.
The abolished prisons, abolished police, which is also positions that have been taken by a lot of the progressive candidates who have won. Mm-hmm. How do you get around that?
Yeah.
I mean, those are not positions that are supported by
right.
most of
I mean, I think that a lot of these races, even right now, they'll have a tendency to be nationalized.
Yes, that is a huge issue right now. Again, Bernie Sanders, he's saying that you got to vote for Peggy Flanagan in Minnesota tomorrow, and the reason you got to vote for Peggy Flanagan is because the AIPAC and the Israel, they're spending all the money. They don't want her in there. She's very, I mean, we got to get the national election. Again, Bernie's in Vermont. You have Abdul El-Sayed in Michigan making endorsements with Ilhan Omar of Minnesota, of Minnesomalia. So what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But these races ultimately are local, and all politics are local. My understanding is that that Francesca Hong has made clear her present stances to her electorate.
Yeah, she's moved away from a lot
right,
of that.
she's moved away from it. And
moved away from what? We'll get to that.
I have a local city councilman that has this saying, woke one was crazy.
The fake, the goofy, cheesy laugh aside, woke one was crazy. They say, okay, again, back when I was at Indianapolis Public Schools, as just joined the team as a science director, I went to an education conference with a classical learning test group in Maryland, in Annapolis. And Cornel West was one of the speakers. At the time, he was speaking in a series alongside conservative Robert George of Princeton. Both very, very intelligent men. And Cornel West said at the time that the problem with woke is, and I quote, sometimes you need to take a freaking nap, end quote. Again, when AOC was the lady that was running around saying all of the insane stuff at the time, I just don't think you're going to turn around and just kind of wash all of this away, wipe all of this away. And the issue is that the socialists say the same stuff as the commies. Even John Carl points this out.
What, in your mind, is the difference between socialism and communism?
I think, to me, the fundamental differences, I mean, there's many.
Yeah.
One prevailing one is democracy. And I believe that democratic socialists are fundamentally pro-democracy.
Which is why they're, trying to abolish and reshape a lot of the institutions that provide for the American form of representative democracy.
And we believe in the ballot box. We believe in respecting the outcomes of elections.
Believe in respecting the outcomes of elections, she says. I will remind you that up until the Trump 2020, that almost every single speech in the House of Representatives urging electors not to certify their votes were from Democrats in the House and the Senate. Every single one. All of them. No. You don't get to whitewash the history here. Not going to work. Not going to work the way that you think it will. Radio Crude will see you on the other side of the commercial break. And we got to talk about this egg issue, I guess. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. I was having a nice Sunday morning. I woke up and I opened to see a couple of messages, one from producer Jen, one from producer Josiah, who was understandably upset about how things turned out over in the Senate. I was as well. And opening up X to find this, it hurts me. It does.
Don't be weird about this, even though I know all of you will be. Okay.
So she did a little video about her freezing her own eggs because, I'm going to be in politics and, it's really hard as a woman to be in because if you're going to be pregnant and all this other stuff. There is a New York Times, or maybe an Atlantic opinion piece from November 1st of 2021 by Michelle Goldberg titled, "We Should All Know Less About Each Other." If this is not the banner story for that headline, I don't know what is. The area where we just did not share everything all the time. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. No one wants to see this. But the idea is that if you don't support it, then you're sexist. And again, this is so difficult for ladies. She wants to do look, everything in my personal life on the Instagram side. And then when you bring her over to the corporate media or the structured media, broadcast media, whatever you'd like to call it, and you ask her questions that she just spent all of this time broadcasting to all of the people that follow her. Then she'll look at you and she'll say, well, I mean, I'm kind of just about everyone, and that's really just about me. I'm not here to talk about me. You don't get to have it both ways. The same thing, by the way, with Abdul El Sayed. He both wants to have the campaigning to the radical left who elected him in the primary, the young college kids, but he also really, really wants to win Michigan's general Senate election against Mike Rogers. The problem is that he's campaigning with insane people who call for very, very, very insane things. And when he's asked about this, he gets really stuffy about it. He's like, it's not about who I'm campaigning with.
You face scrutiny for campaigning with socialist streamer Hassan Piker, who has made a series of inflammatory comments, as you well know, including saying America deserved 9/11, describing Hamas as a lesser evil than Israel. Do you plan to continue to campaign with Hassan Piker in the general election campaign?
By the way, good question from Welker. One thing that I think that she has on Meet the Press that I definitely don't see from what's her failure over on Face the Nation, Margaret Brennan, direct questions that are all, again, I don't, there's a little bit of a natural talent thing here. I don't agree with her political views 99% of the time. Good question.
Look, I'm less concerned now with who I'm campaigning with, a lot more concerned about who I'm campaigning to.
I'm not concerned with who I'm campaigning with. I am more concerned about who I am campaigning to. Inshallah, you do realize that it is who you campaign with that matters a lot to people. Otherwise, Barack Obama wouldn't get out there and say, now listen up, black men, you gotta sometimes vote for a sister. And then it's Kamala Harris. If Obama, and by the way, he's trying very desperately now to simp for Obama's endorsement. So it clearly matters to him who he's campaigning with. He's a liar.
A lot of work to do to continue to build the coalition that's going to beat Mike Rogers.
Would you welcome him, though? On the campaign trail with you?
Like I said, I'm a lot more focused on...
Would you welcome him then? Oh, so you buddies? You joined at the left butt cheek? What's going on here? And he's like, again, I've given you my pre-prepared index card laminated response.
On who I'm campaigning to. So I think we have this notion sometimes on shows like this that we cannot or should not talk to certain groups of people. And I'll tell you that the 3 million people who listen to Hassan are people I want to make sure understand that there's a pathway into our politics.
There it is. Radio crew, welcome back to the commercial. From the commercial break, it's all about this. So you saw this on the right, bizarrely enough, a couple of months ago. This idea that, Tucker Carlson is saying insane things and awful things, like openly pro-socialist and very Islamist things, just garbage. And there was this argument among a lot of individuals that I'm friendly with on the right. Well, you can't. Well, if we get rid of him, what about all those young men? I mean, those young men. And it's like, hold on a second here. Hold on. Why do we need to shape our politics around the ideas and the frustrations, and then also, by the way, the suggested solutions of those who have no idea how the system works at all, who have no idea how the American civic system works at all? The reason that I don't make this show as a pitch to those in their 20s and early 30s and late teens, as a lot of the online and modern political shows do, that I don't go after the 18 to 25 demographic, is because those people will eventually grow up into adults who have a much better understanding of how things work. He doesn't want to throw away the Hassan Piker crowd, so we can't disavow him. That's going to be a problem.
Around getting money out of politics so we can keep money back in pockets and pass Medicare for all.
So there it is. It's all about the Medicare for all. So he tries to flip it around and say, well, I mean, it's really, don't really look at a lot of things that I've said or done. Just listen to me say, Medicare for all over and over and over and over. Now, if you go back into his earlier stuff, now I know I see some of the comments, even a super chat, Pineapple Water saying, everyone learn the word taqiyya. It's the Islamic idea of in a time of warfare, it's okay to lie. It's not that deep. This man is just slimy in general, and he's not the tough guy that he really wants. He tries to portray himself as a tough dude. It doesn't work very well.
Football is very much associated with a particularly masculine and oftentimes toxically masculine culture, and so much of it was about you wanted to be able to get back up and play for your team, and you really aren't allowed to show pain or vulnerability. That's part of the sport.
You aren't allowed to show vulnerability. It's part of the sport. You don't understand. The vulnerability is so deeply important. Yeah. And then he wants to aggravate, don't get me wrong, I lift every morning, but being a man isn't about how you show up to the gym. It's about how you show up for your family and how you show up for the community. The Hassan Piker stuff is somehow worse because he won't detach from Hassan Piker, which is hilarious. He's more than welcome to go right through this. The Rolling Stone. Why is everyone scared of Hassan Piker? All he's doing is talking about Israel. That's all. And he's super pro-China. Why are you against Hassan Piker? He's just a socialist that's for the working man. And he hates capitalism unless he's benefiting from it in his little private pools. There's the dog that he electrocutes on the air. Oh, and he's got a derp. Oh, he's just a kid with a dream. Yeah, I mean, he's pretty open about what he wants.
Mandami's aide, his top aide, Sia Weaver, said if you don't believe in the government's sacred right to seize property, it's over, and impoverish the white middle class.
Beast mode. I love her so much.
I mean, just say it right out loud. Just say it right out loud. You can say that he's trying to bait people with this, but if a conservative said, hey, you know what I'm really just trying to do? I'm trying to just remove black people. I mean, you think that every outlet on planet Earth wouldn't be covering that?
One of the things about Zoran is that the people surrounding him oftentimes are so much cooler than he is. But that's also part of the reason why I really respect what he's doing. She's awesome.
Great. That's exciting stuff. And now, by the way, I will point out that, since he's a Turk, it's a little on the nose for impoverishing groups of middle-class earners in your country, or just, genociding them altogether, as the Greeks and the Armenians know very, very well. But anywho, when it comes to migrant goals, he'll tell you.
We're going to keep bringing in immigrants in this country on purpose, just so they your sister, and then maybe even your daughter. We're going to destroy the white. That's what we're here to do.
No worries, though. People will fall on barbed wire to defend this man, though.
Or he has I'm not going to play a part in a party that Hassan Parker has a role in, and you're like, don't worry, you won't.
That's a slap at James Carville. That's a slap at James Carville, because Carville's like, well, I'm not gonna share a party with him. I'm not gonna actively give you what I know about the Rust Belt. And James Carville, if there was one thing he knows, James Carville won the Rust Belt for Bill Clinton. James Carville won the Rust Belt initially for Obama in 2008. It was partly James Carville. As much as we make fun of him now for talking all mad and I'm not gonna do this, and Donald Trump he's a rascal. As much as we make fun of him these days, it is because of James Carville that even the red state of Indiana flipped for Obama in 2008. And they're saying, oh, we don't need any of those middle states. Good, you won't play a part in this party. Best of luck to you, John.
Like, I don't know if he understands how time works.
Yeah.
Like, and not to be gross about it, but yeah.
It's okay. No, I think that's fair.
That young guy, that's a fiery preacher for economic populism and other things. Nope. I'm going to wait till he burns himself out, and then I'm going to come back in 2040.
It's the 90s, baby. Let's go.
And me and Mary Madeline are going to do a show.
Best of luck to you. Best of luck to you with this. Seriously, if you really believe that the best way to move things forward in Michigan and Wisconsin, and even, dare I say, in Minnesota and some parts of Illinois, Ohio, even Colorado of all places, you think that the best way through all of this is, oh, well, Hassan Piker, he's just a fiery evangelical preacher. I've heard a lot of evangelicals preach in my time. You kind of get that when you go to a undergrad called Maranatha Baptist University. And I'm just going to be quite clear with you. I ain't never heard any sermons like what Hassan Piker says on a daily basis, all the time. When Hassan Piker says the most insane, awful, horrible, evil things. All the time. I mean, just outright calling on people to kill others.
Hurt poor people that they can afford housing in Berkeley. I don't know how that works.
My understanding is that the property owners who have properties there choose just not to rent it at all.
Yeah, kill them. Kill those. Murder those. Street. Let the streets soak in their capitalist bloods, dude.
I mean, he's just a young preacher. Yikes. And again, same thing. Here's Don Lemon and Jennifer Welch, the trifecta of really embarrassing podcast sphere completed.
You know what I think is very American?
I don't think anyone, this is, again, as a reminder, Don Lemon a couple of weeks ago said that there were all of these people asking him to run for president.
Nope.
And they said, oh, you should really consider running for president.
Nope.
And yeah, that absolutely didn't happen. So he's like, I'm really in touch with Americans, Don Lemon. I know a lot of you tune into the show from all over the country. If you think he's in touch, I really do want to hear in the comment section if you believe that this man is like really right down the middle, in touch with things.
Is not painting people who are Muslim or who are not Christians as demon, or who are non-believers as demonic or communist or somehow bad for the country. Our founding fathers said that there should be no test, a religious test in this country.
So yeah, that's not actually true, by the way. The religious test in the country, it was essentially the idea that if you had someone here who was saying and doing insane, violent, murderous things, that was considered an ethic unacceptable. And we know this, by the way, because the first 100 years of this country's history, migration is in fact driven, and a lot of the early expulsions from this country did get a little close to religious lines. No one ever talks about it, though. You just kind of cite the First Amendment as though that explains it all, and it's not.
There's no national religion. And so I think the more American thing for me is to accept people in office who are from all religions.
So there is no national definition of how you must speak. That does not, however, mean that all types of speech are accepted. Very, very big difference. Saying, oh, there's no national religion. Okay, well, if your national religion is killing people efficiently, clearly, openly, bloodthirstily, whether that's the French revolutionary proto-socialism that would later on develop into Karl Marxian communism and then Leninism, and that's your religion, or whether it's the Islamist caliphate conquest, that's not compatible. That's not a thing. Just because there's no national manner and mandate for speech doesn't mean that you get to go around, inciting violence and actually inciting the assault and battery of individuals. That's not a thing.
And that includes Abdul El Sayed. That includes Zoran Mamdani. That includes an Ilhan Omar, or any of those folks. So there's nothing wrong with being Muslim. There's nothing wrong with being a Sikh. There's nothing wrong with being Baptist or Catholic or Jewish. But you seem to be demonizing the people whose religions that you want to otherize, and you're doing it on purpose. That's not very American to me. And it's also, guess what? It's not very godlike or Christian.
Oh, there it is. There, the school marmory comes in just right there. Best of luck with this. Best of luck with this. If you think that a lot of the voting base of the country is just going to sit there and kind of look the other way, right now there's a very bizarre thing happening in regard to the transition from woke 1 to woke 2, I guess, from AOC's perspective here. And it's this idea that all funnels around receipts and pretending things are happening or that aren't happening, that really are or that really aren't. Radio crew, we have to send you over to the commercial break, and we're going to continue over here because now Republicans and Democrats are both worried about the inside of their parties. And it's kind of bizarre to see. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. We'll continue on the live stream. All right, well, the radio crew is over at their commercial break. Sorry, the YouTube streaming, and we're trying to figure a couple of things out. We're working on it. We're doing our best behind the scenes. So we're keeping an eye on things. If you do like the show tonight, liking and subscribing, that helps us a ton. But anyway, in the meantime, so on the inside of the tents, there is this bizarre idea that voters are just going to look the other way and they're not going to remember the promises that were made. This is a dumb idea. Both parties are currently doing it. Republicans are kind of whistling past the graveyard and saying, oh, well, people won't really care about this. People won't really remember what was promised. They'll just go and they'll think the other side is really bad and they'll come out to vote for that. They won't. The left is doing the same thing. They're saying people won't remember woke one. People won't remember all the trans stuff. People won't remember all of the you're a white supremacist and you need to own up to it stuff. And it's all obviously it's an issue because here on the Tony Kinnett Cast, we have all of the receipts. A lot of other places out there have kept very detailed receipts and they show up on your feed time and time and time again. And as big tech starts to move away from the left, and it is, big tech is moving away from the left because the left wants to kill them all guillotine style. Well, I mean, at some point, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to have to come to the conclusion that voters are going to remember some things and it's just going to tamp down on their desire to come out and support anything at all. I have said this before. I'm very eager tomorrow night to see what the turnout looks like in the primaries in Wisconsin and Minnesota. That's the big thing for me. For Michigan, it was how Detroit voters vote. They ended up voting for Haley Stevens. It's a bad sign for Democrats. I'm eager to see tomorrow how voters turn out to vote in Wisconsin and in Minnesota. Because so far, my theory, my midterm forecast, if you will, is that very few people are going to show up to vote for the midterms at all. Very, very, very few. Why? There's nothing to get excited about. It's two different parties that are just gaslighting you into pretending that the last decade didn't happen. Now, again, they're gaslighting in very, very, very different ways. And not everyone's gaslighting. That's why the midterm convention for the Republicans in Dallas is very, very, very interesting, coming up here in less than a month. But for the Democratic side of the aisle, they're now trying to have it both ways. You see this in the WNBA, right? Because now you have a lot of former NBA draft picks that are saying, no, I'm actually a woman now, let me in the WNBA, because they understand it's a sham. And so you have all of the woke one Karens on the left who said, no, trans is real and it's so real. I mean, it's all the same. Now the commissioner of the WNBA is gathering all of the coaches and saying, okay, we got to come up with a definition for woman. Not even Ketanji Brown Jackson come up with a definition for woman a couple of years ago. They want to erase that. But that's totally not compatible with the new Democrats where they just simply ignore everything and say, Democrats for all, or healthcare for all, Medicare for all, workers' rights, and then nothing else. There are people that are sounding the alarm more and more and more as time goes on because they know it's not just going to be a cakewalk.
Yeah, do I have some things I'd like to talk to you, Abdul, about? Certainly. I want to talk about some of the language that he uses on the campaign trail. And I also want to speak to him about some of the surrogates that he uses that, are concerning to some people.
Well, I mean, at some point, if you have concerns, they have to actually turn into something a little bit more than just saying the word concern. Voters have no issue expressing that. Radio crew, welcome back from the commercial break. And again, we've already talked about the things that she's concerned about that Hassan has said. The president has a pretty decent bead on this, and that is going to prevent independents from coming out to vote for Democrats, at least so far.
Well, the one thing is we have jihadists being elected all over the place. We have this, whether it's communism, jihadism. It's a friend of mine called up. He said, really, you should use the word jihadist because that's what's happening. And I'm not sure that anybody, if you take a look at what happens in other countries, I think that's not going to be necessarily the way we want to live. But when you look at the radicalism and the craziness of the candidates and the stupidity of what they're suggesting, let's get rid of the Supreme Court, let's get rid of the presidency, let's get rid of the Senate. They want to get, sometimes I'd like to get rid of the Senate too, but I don't.
Funny, because what's hindering the Republicans, at least right now, from going along with President Trump's vision for the Republican Party this term, is the Senate is doing nothing. Now, to make this clear, because what the president's saying there is correct, when I make the case that it's not all to be laid at the feet of John Thune, what I mean is not that John Thune is blameless as a Senate Majority Leader. He absolutely cares a ton of it. It is that he is hiding a bunch of other Republican senators that should be receiving national pressure, and that even if Thune put pressure on a lot of them, there are a bunch of people who are either retiring anyway or lost primaries and just aren't going to do anything. It is a very awkward, lame duck Senate. And that's really what it is. It's a lame duck Senate, and you have all of these senators that are useless and pointless. That will change over the next decade for both parties. And that brings us over to primary season in Minnesota, because believe it or not, primary season in Minnesota kind of matters. The Democrats are putting forward two people that are going up toe to toe tomorrow. Angie Craig, who's kind of normal sometimes, occasionally. And then you have Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan. Now, Peggy Flanagan, Peggy Flanagan. She's an interesting one. Remember, this is the lady who says that her Ojibwe Wolf Clan name talks a lot of boogity boo or something.
This is the realest version of Peggy Flanagan is what you're getting right now. So, Buju, Peggy Flanagan, and Dishnakaz, Gishu Webada McQuay, and to go, Guababig, Gari Cognan Jun Shaba, Mayangan and Dodame.
A boogity boogity to you too. So she's trying to speak Ojibwe. There's this really, really bizarre thing. She also is it she or was it Tim Wall's wife that came forward during the 2024 election campaign and said, my Ojibwe name talks too much, and everyone laughed very, very awkwardly. This is essentially a lady who watched Dances with Wolves with Kevin Costner one too many times, said Tatanka over and over for Buffalo, Tatanka. And now, that's her entire campaign. That Angie Craig, or no, excuse me, not that Peggy Flanagan. Really weird. Haley Stevens, but swapped out the you can do betcha kind of Biden approach for the, I'm totally friends with all of the Native Americans. I love getting to do this. As an actual member of the Cherokee tribe, best of luck to you there. Best of luck to you. Hilarious indeed. I enjoy your, you know what? Jib, way to go. Fanny Flanagan, Peggy Fanny Flanagan. Excellent. That's going to be thrilling. Bernie Sanders, though, says it's not because she's awful. It's not because she's embarrassing. The real problem is, you guessed it, you know it. It's the super PACs and the billionaires and the AIPAC and the Jews. I can't believe it. Bernie Sanders. They're trying to get Peggy Flanagan. They're trying to put her on the reservation. I can't believe it. Bernie Sanders, go.
I think what we're seeing in Minnesota, Margaret, in Michigan, and all across this country is that people understand that we're living with an economy that is rigged.
It's rigged. And the reason I know it is I've never participated in the economy, but it is rigged. I tried to go to Ben & Jerry's, and they tried to sell me to Native Americans on the land. I couldn't believe it.
You have working families, 60% of our people living paycheck to paycheck. People can't afford groceries, housing, healthcare, basic necessities of life. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, they're seeing the richest people in this country become even richer.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, it's like they're seeing the richest people in this country become even richer. Wow. Gee, whoops. I almost showed pictures of Hassan Piker there.
People are tired of the status quo politics and establishment policies. They want real change. And Peggy Flanagan is about bringing about real change, standing up to the big money interests. There is a reason why the super PACs and the billionaires are flooding Minnesota with all kinds of money.
Okay, guys, we need to talk about this. I'm so tired of this. Guys, politics at this point is a national game. It is. It is now a national game. It is. Whether it's a representative seat, even a lot of state representative and state Senate seats are national games because they change how Congress is redistricted. It's a national game. Politics for many, it's a sporting event. For yours truly, at least. And so you have different teams that are playing and how they play and how they trade and all of the various alerts. It just so happens that when it's a national game, you're going to have national people getting involved nationally. So I don't know what Bernie Sanders, when he says, there are super PACs that are spending money. Yeah, because it's a Senate race. The Senate is even more restricted and more special than House seats. So why wouldn't you have national, if you think the Republican candidate is going to lose to the Democrat and they're not doing so hot and a lot of people aren't sending that Republican candidate in the state money, why wouldn't you have a bunch of people throw money into the race? No matter who, no matter where, why wouldn't you? Doesn't that make sense? Isn't that the whole thing about Act Blue, is you donate to Act Blue and then they take it and then they donate it where it's necessary? Isn't that the point of national committees?
Same thing as Michigan. They don't want somebody to stand up for the working class in Minnesota.
So there's the last thing there. So he says that Peggy Flanagan and that Abdul El-Sayed, they're going to stand up for the working class. And he lists a series of problems. Some of them, by the way, are true problems. There are a lot of people that do live paycheck to paycheck. There are a lot of people that he says can't afford food. A lot of grocery prices are rather expensive. Like, again, a lot of medical insurance, there's a lot of issues. But he never actually says, here's how we're going to solve the cost of grocery bills, except everyone needs to pay me money. That's his answer. Everyone gives Bernie Sanders money. Give me money. That's his answer. He never actually says, hey, by the way, what we're going to do is we're going to cut a lot of these insurance regulations. So if there's an insurance provider in Wyoming that can give you better insurance than anywhere in Ohio, you in Ohio can go to that insurer in Wyoming and get better insurance. Or we're going to destructure a lot of the Obamacare stuff that made corporate mandated welfare the only way to affordably get insurance at all. No single payer stuff that works for you anymore. You have to go to this other nonsense. This kind of silliness, and then just saying, well, if anyone asks you why, you say Medicaid for all, Medicare for all. You look at, you got to get the Medicare. It's very, very important. You got to get the Medicare. Very, very good. Very, very important. It's just not going to work. Don't get me wrong. Peggy Flanagan, same thing. Medicare for all. That's her whole stretch.
So I would say I absolutely think people are ready for Medicare for all. You know, as I've been traveling across the states, what I've heard from people in particular in rural communities is that their costs are too high.
Their costs are too high.
They don't have very many options.
They don't have many options.
And when I hear from, you know, a librarian.
Radio crew, we have to send you guys out. We're going to continue on the live stream. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. Okay. When I travel around and I talk to people, people say, I think things are too expensive. And then you just say, well, the answer is we're just going to tax everyone and we're just going to spend oodles, canoodles, and toaster strudels of money on it from the federal level.
And a farmer who pays $16,000 a year for their deductible.
Again, the reason for that is because the Obamacare system, which I was told was flipping amazing, was going to swing in and it was going to force all of these corporations to pay for their people's insurance at the company. And the United States insurance system is not exactly stellar to begin with because of all of the subsidies and all of the, going here for that, for other kind of risk management. And so it forced individual entities who wanted to pay for their own insurance to pay wild deductibles for individual insurance. And so her answer to this is to steer even harder into the skid and put people all the way into just Medicare for all. That's going to be the answer, is just government-run healthcare. Bro. Then you actually get past that. And then you get to the Republican side of the race is a lot different as well because of who's running. And it's not a done deal yet. A lot of Minnesotans, remember, isn't she the lady that was in charge of dealing with some of this fraud stuff?
So let's get right to a viewer question on this, and I'll let you address this question here. So this is from Josh in Minneapolis. Given the fact that as lieutenant governor in the current administration, you've been as oblivious to the fraud issues as Walz over the last few years, why should we trust you to be vigilant now and have our best interests as our priority? How do you answer Josh?
Well, I'd say a couple of things. The first thing that I would say is, that as the former executive director of a nonprofit that served children and families, I am appalled by the fraud that has occurred. Minnesotans are upset about it. They're angry.
Sure. I'm gonna take a wild stab here, and nope. I'm gonna say survey says probably not.
Angry, and I am too. I can tell you that this administration has taken steps. There's a new office of Inspector General that was passed this last legislative session.
Best of luck to you. Best of luck to you with this. I really don't think it's going to go as well. Again, as a reminder, as of August 6th, Angie Craig, according to KSTP and Survey USA, it's an A-rated pollster. Angie Craig was up 42 to Peggy Flanagan's 40. Angie Craig is gaining just a little bit. And it's because, you guessed it, those who are older than 50 are leaning very hard into Craig. And those between ages 18 and 49 are very heavily in favor of Flanagan. I think we actually even have that it's just a little snippet of a tweet from one of the polling aggregates that I follow here. So what does this mean? It means going all in on the nutcases is really, really not the way to go. It's not. Doesn't matter. Republicans did, in fact, learn this lesson for the most part back in 18, 20, and 22. They did. And they stopped running many of the cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs people. The left is just now getting into this rough place. They're getting the wackadoodles. The problem is they're coming from wackadoodle to other wackadoodles. Again, Haley Stevens came out of the woke one era, where I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar was also all of this really bizarre, weird, I am Ojibwe Bidet Shenane. And with Peggy Flanagan as Tim Walz, Lieutenant Governor, Haley Stevens with the Chris Farley-isms and the vans down by the river, that kind of stuff, moving it over to the socialist camp. I mean, I'm sorry, moving from pride flags to communism. Yeah, I just don't see the independents thinking, yeah, that's how everything can be fixed. The same, by the way, over in Wisconsin. So Francesca Hong, who's also got her primary tomorrow, we're going to have a lot of fun with this one. I don't know how, when we compiled our wonderful receipts video for y'all, which you can, by the way, find over on at Tony Kinnett Cast. Now, after this live stream is over, producer Daniel will put a little card up right here to that video for you to click on if you're watching later. If you're watching now in the live, sorry, we'll just have to send you guys over there and you have to search for that video of receipts yourself. This Francesca Hong, I don't know how we missed this clip. This is the kind of stuff that she was screaming a couple years ago. Receipts are here, folks.
Global warming is an evil product of capitalism. It's wrapped up in buzzwords like technological advancement, market competitiveness, or my favorite, fiscal responsibility. What we've learned is that the climate crisis is America's steadfast celebration of white supremacy. It is a testament to the same values that motivated Jim Crow, enslavement, redlining, settler colonialism, and the violent theft of indigenous lands and lives.
Best of luck to you. And the Young Socialists in Madison, they want to go all out for that. And we're going to be talking to a specific individual about this tomorrow before we kind of get set up for the primaries. I would once again like to remind y'all, no matter who you are, though, that none of this is a guarantee for Republican success. Not a bit of it. Just having the left not come out as much in November is not a guarantee. And it's not. And as we get the, also I should mention, by the way, Connecticut and Vermont also hold primaries tomorrow. On the Republican side of the aisle, it's not looking too great either. Even though, don't get me wrong, again, I still see so much when it comes to the WNBA, or at least a lot of the left wing that is going really, really heavily into the early woke one, men can be women, women can be men rhetoric. It's, guys, look, it's hard to know what to say when certain timeless truths are challenged. Like definitions of simple words like man or woman. Ketanji Brown Jackson was unavailable for comment. Gender ideology is still permeated almost every area of public life, including your kids' school, sports, medical ethics, religious freedom. If you're not sure how to navigate all of that, you are not alone. That is exactly why our sponsor, the Alliance Defending Freedom, has created a free 5-part video series in order to help you, that's right, you, respond to the destructive lies of gender ideology with facts fortified by grace, not to mention the receipts. You'll hear from experienced attorneys on how this ideology is affecting the culture and how you can advocate for your beliefs and for your freedoms. Head over to joinadf.com/Tony. You can catch the free series, get it right to your inbox, and equip yourself to stand for truth with confidence and clarity. That's joinadf.com/TONY. So before we finish things out here, the one issue that Republicans are going to have is that there is also not a huge amount of momentum on the right side of the aisle as well. Now, a lot of that comes down to Congress. It does. Republicans in the Senate have done a whole lot of nothing, and that's a big issue. But the administration has also made a series of gambles that it doesn't seem to have made up its mind on finishing one way or the other. So the Trump administration has yet to suggest whether or not we're going to see some of these 10 to 15% tariffs that he's implemented amid some of the Canada wildfire situation. It's not quite clear if the president of the United States is going to relax any of those things before we get to the core primary into the midterm election season. So once primaries are over, we get into the last midterm stretch. It's unclear whether that's going to relinquish some of the restraints on the economy. It's also not clear whether or not the president is going to finish things off in Iran or kind of George W. Bush declare that it's over and that it's done and then bring everybody back home. It's just not clear. And that kind of uncertainty is leaving a lot of Republicans not excited about getting out to vote in the midterms. So that's why when I talk about the issues for both parties, there is a lack of excitement among kind of the independents and the moderates. Now, there are a lot of people who are very excited to go vote in the midterms, and that's excellent. There are a lot of people who have gotten more invested and more involved on a political level, and that's excellent to see. It is truly a good thing to see this administration right here and right now getting a lot of people in the game, as it were, on a level that isn't just kind of a one election bid, a one candidate bid, but actually diving into a couple of things that get people involved on a long-term basis. That's excellent. That's a very, very good thing to see. But if we are relying on that to be what carries people through the entire election, there's going to be some pretty significant disappointments. There will be some pretty significant disappointments. Now, again, Attorney General Todd Blanche is going to be making some pretty sizable investigations and prosecutions, likely. That's what he's done so far as the acting attorney general, now that he's in that job, over the next couple of weeks. There are some other pieces of news that we should note. The Washington Post is reporting, quote, that an Iranian assassination threat prompted a secret presidential extraction from Turkey last month. Trump secretly transferred from the Legacy Air Force One to a C-32A, while the White House publicly maintained that he was aboard Air Force One. Now, that's some interesting new news on that side of things. There are some contradicting statements regarding the president, regarding Pete Hegseth, regarding how things in the Middle East are going. Do I think that will resolve one way or the other? Yes, I do. Am I confident to tell you guys, at least as kind of looking at this data, a prediction on how I think that's going to go one way or the other? No. Now, the last thing that I keep hearing, and it is very interesting to see so far in the economy, is this AI bubble that really does not seem to be bubbling whatsoever. But also, while big tech is moving pretty significantly from the left, it doesn't appear that they're shifting really hard into the right, as a lot of the youths on the right, and then on some of the populist side, is a lot of outrage over data centers. So one of the things that we're going to be taking a look at over the next couple of weeks is how these data centers are actually affecting the cost of electricity, the cost of water, the quality of water, the quality of living around areas that these particular data centers are being built. Because I'm tired of hearing from other people how all of this is gonna like change everything or not. I'm tired of it. I'm hearing and seeing all of this bloat kind of pushed to y'all over that kind of a thing. I will say this, there are some things Republicans can do to not embarrass themselves and not stab themselves in the feet. Flock cameras. So there are these cameras all around the country that have been popping up that I am told are both very, 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 very good and very, 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 very bad. So flock cameras, these cameras on a black pole with a single solar panel that you often see out while you're driving about, they're automated license plate reading and AI-powered surveillance camera systems made by Flock Safety. They're mounted on poles and streetlights, and these solar-powered cameras capture vehicle details, including license plates, make, model, and color, to help law enforcement track stolen cars and investigate crimes. I don't like these. I don't like these at all. The reason I don't like these, even though, again, do I think that it is good to provide resources to law enforcement? I do think, by the way, it's good. Increasing CCTV coverage for automated car information and tracking, I really, really don't like that. And the reason that I really, really don't like that is precisely because what we just talked about at the very beginning of the show. I don't like that. Data centers are not doing tons of data collection on people. That's not at all what I've gathered so far. Flock cameras, however, do explicitly seem built for the purpose of capturing automotive data and transferring that information to law enforcement. During the COVID-19 lockdowns, there were individuals who tried to go to the beach, who tried to speak out against certain administration policies, and were debanked, who were cut off from certain electronic banking material and resources and services because of where they went and what they said and did. And the idea of bringing that throughout kind of like a large, broader part of the Midwest and the South and the coasts, I don't think is very good. I don't think that's a good thing. I don't. Now, the common answer to this is, well, I'm not a criminal, so I don't care. I hear you. Here's my answer to that. The people who were debanked during the COVID-19 era, were they criminals? When the FBI under the Biden administration, when they classified Catholics as a terrorist threat, those who went to school board meetings as a terrorist threat, could you see the federal law enforcement requesting information from Flock the same federal law enforcement, or the same, I should say, independent prosecutor, as he was called, Jack Smith, who illegally received the phone tolls, meaning like all of the records and details of sitting U.S. senators and representatives, which is illegal to do so without notifying them. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I don't think that's a good thing. I think that absolutely that could be carried forward. I don't think that creating a broader camera-ized surveillance state in that manner is a good method. I don't. I think there are better ways to protect vehicles. I think there are better ways to protect property. But again, aren't the flock cameras in the data centers connected? No, they're not. They're seriously, they're not. I mean, the actual infrastructure so far suggests that flock is related very closely to the actual flock security organization, just to answer one of the questions I saw pop up. And of the 120,000 units operating nationwide, they're not like using local data centers. That's not how it works. It's not like it needs to go to a local center for processing. They're all going to like one or two of the same locations, and the data is being processed in-house with flock security. They're not like renting that out to the data centers nearby. That's not necessarily how that works. So, anywho, that said and aside, I think we are going to wrap things up for this evening. And tomorrow, it's primary day. We're going to see if Francesca Hong, the Thanksgiving hater, and Peggy Ojibwe Flanagan in Minnesota can pull it off. A lot of excellent stuff coming tomorrow. Don't miss it. Like and subscribe. We'll see you tomorrow at 7 p.m., hopefully with a few more of these YouTube issues fixed. Every day, it's like the cat in the hat. We find one thing that's not causing it. We'll get it figured out one way or the other. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC. Take care.